In a universe where legends are as tangible as the battles fought upon scarred battlefields, there exists a name that reverberates in hushed tones and unsettled dreams: the Deathrattle skeletons. Before we embark on an expedition into their shadowy legacy, it is essential to understand the atmosphere in which this mystery thrives, a realm where every whisper of history carries a weight far beyond mere myth, and where echoes of an ancient past resonate with the clamor of an uncertain future. The stage is set in a time when the boundaries between life and death blur into a gray twilight. Across a landscape scarred by countless conflicts, remnants of long-forgotten civilizations intermingle with the remnants of more recent strife. Amid the ruin and resurgence, legends are born. Legends that transcend the limitations of mortal understanding and spark curiosity among scholars, warriors, and common folk alike. The Deathrattle skeletons, an elusive force in this intricate tapestry, have come to symbolize a bridge between worlds, a spectral reminder of a legacy that refuses to be consigned solely to the annals of history. In this sprawling expanse of myth and might, the nature of existence is continuously challenged. Every gust of wind carries stories of battles that shook the foundations of empires, of ancient oaths sworn under blood-red skies, and of entities that defy the simple dichotomy of good and evil. The lore surrounding the Deathrattle skeletons is no exception. Their name alone stokes a curiosity that transcends the conventional narratives of heroism and villainy. Instead, it beckons us to question the very fabric of reality, urging us to consider that in a cosmos teeming with mysteries, some truths are as imperceptible as the silent step of a wanderer in the dark. What makes the Deathrattle skeletons so compelling is not merely their spectral existence, but the aura of enigma that surrounds them. They are shrouded in ambiguity, a phenomenon whose origins, motivations, and ultimate purpose are as contested as they are cloaked in secrecy. Across the whispered legends passed from generation to generation, there emerges a consistent, though elusive, impression of power and inevitability. The lore hints at a connection to events that transcend the immediate and the tangible, suggesting that their presence is intertwined with the fate of realms far greater than any single empire or faction. The journey we are about to undertake does not begin with a detailed cataloging of every battle fought or every alliance forged in the name of this spectral force. Rather, it starts with an invitation, an opportunity to peer into the broader narrative, where the Deathrattle skeletons serve as a catalyst for questioning long-held assumptions about destiny, power, and the interplay between order and chaos. In this narrative, the familiar is rendered mysterious, and the mysterious, in turn, reveals deeper layers of meaning. We stand at the threshold of a story where the past and future converge, where the spectral and the material merge into a narrative mosaic that challenges even the most learned minds. It is in this space, between the light of understanding and the darkness of forgotten lore, that the true enigma of the Deathrattle skeletons resides. Without delving into the minutiae of their affiliations or the explicit details of their actions, this prologue serves as a portal to a wider world of inquiry. The legends surrounding these figures have been carefully constructed over time, emerging as a focal point in a larger, multifaceted saga that transcends the simplistic labels of hero or villain. As you prepare to navigate the labyrinthine corridors of this narrative, consider the Deathrattle skeletons not as mere characters in a forgotten tale, but as a symbol of the eternal interplay between memory and myth. They remind us that some mysteries are deliberately left open-ended, inviting each generation to reinterpret and rediscover their significance in light of new struggles, evolving ideologies, and the unyielding march of time. In doing so, they challenge us to see beyond the immediate, to appreciate the enduring resonance of legends that shape our understanding of a universe where nothing is ever truly as it seems. Thus, with a mind attuned to the subtleties of legend and a heart open to the arcane allure of the unknown, we set the stage for a deeper exploration. The Deathrattle skeletons, with their spectral echoes and timeless presence, call us to embark on a journey that will gradually unfold their mysteries, one layer at a time, one revelation at a time, until the full spectrum of their enigmatic legacy is finally brought to light. In this intricate tapestry of lore, several distinct groups emerge as central figures whose very identities help shape the narrative of the Deathrattle skeletons. Each faction carries its own distinct purpose and essence, contributing a unique perspective to the unfolding events without delving into the specifics of their endeavors. At the heart of the mystery lies the spectral cohort itself, a collection of forces that embody the skeletal remnants of an age-old power. Their existence transcends mortal ken, serving as a living reminder of legacies carved into the annals of time. These entities are neither confined to the realm of the living nor fully surrendered to oblivion, and their presence has become a symbol of enduring transformation. Their role is less about overt manifestation and more about representing a continuum of memory and forgotten grandeur. Parallel to this spectral host, an assembly of scholarly guardians known as the Veiled Synod has arisen. This circle of erudite researchers is dedicated to exploring the cryptic language of ancient inscriptions and the subtle signatures left behind by forgotten epics. Tasked with unraveling the riddles embedded within relics and time-worn manuscripts, they serve as the intellectual bridge connecting the present to a distant past. Their solemn duty is to safeguard an accumulated heritage of lore and to interpret symbols whose meanings defy conventional understanding. By maintaining a meticulous record of vestigial hints and covert communications, they help to keep the arcane legacy of these skeletal forces alive in collective memory. In a different vein, the Ironbound Legion stands as a formidable militant faction whose very structure is a testament to ancient martial traditions. Steeped in ritual and bound by an unyielding code, their existence is marked by a disciplined commitment to uphold order amid chaotic circumstances. With battle-forged resolve and a strict hierarchical order, they represent the martial response to the profound disturbances linked to the skeletal phenomena. Their presence is felt not through overt declarations of supremacy, but via the subtle imposition of structure, a necessary counterweight to the fluid and shifting nature of other, less tangible powers at work. Complementing these forces are the custodians of the Ashen Archive, a collective devoted to preserving the vestiges of a bygone era. This group of meticulous archivists and record keepers is tasked with the daunting responsibility of maintaining an extensive repository of documents, relics, and oral traditions. Their custodianship is vital for ensuring that the fragmented remnants of history are neither lost to time nor distorted by the vagaries of memory. Through their unwavering commitment to accurate preservation and careful documentation, they serve as the living library of all that has transpired in the shadow of these skeletal apparitions, thus providing a critical reference point for those who seek to understand the broader narrative. Another essential faction is the Forsaken Covenant, a motley alliance of wanderers, outcasts, and renegades whose fates are intricately linked with the skeletal mystery. Bound by ancient oaths and long-forgotten promises, these individuals navigate a realm where loyalties are as fluid as the shifting sands of history. Their role is defined not by rigid doctrine, but by the delicate equilibrium between honor and despair as they operate on the margins of established society. In their quiet, persistent presence, they embody the tension between collective memory and the impulse to forge new identities amid overwhelming change. Rounding out the primary participants is the Guild of the Arcane Sigils, a consortium of mystics and ritual practitioners committed to deciphering the subtle energies that permeate the cosmos. Their focus lies in detecting and interpreting the latent forces that bind the universe together, a mission that places them at the very nexus of physical phenomena and metaphysical insight. This guild operates with an almost ritualistic precision, blending traditional knowledge with innovative techniques to chart the invisible currents that swirl around the skeletal legacies. They act as interpreters of forces that defy simple explanation, offering insights that are critical for those attempting to grasp the full spectrum of influences at play. Together, These diverse groups form a multifaceted network of influence, each contributing a vital thread to the overall narrative. Their roles are defined not by the minutiae of specific actions, but by the overarching responsibilities they bear in relation to the spectral phenomena. Whether through the preservation of ancient lore, the disciplined application of martial order, the pursuit of cryptic knowledge, or the bridging of societal divides, each faction plays an indispensable part in sustaining the complex interplay between the past and the present. In this carefully woven framework, the factions stand as distinct embodiments of purpose, each a repository of its own unique strengths and perspectives. Their existence, firmly rooted in the intricate dynamics of history and myth, offers a panoramic view of the forces that converge in the wake of the Deathrattle skeletons. As observers, we are invited to consider not only the individual contributions of these groups, but also the interlocking relationships that bind them together in a shared destiny, a destiny that continues to shape the contours of a realm steeped in mystery and ancient reverence. A confluence of gradual transformations and long-simmering tensions set the stage for the rise of these skeletal forces. Centuries of shifting alliances, cultural metamorphoses, and subtle alterations in societal norms gradually loosened the bonds that had once held ancient orders in place. This slow evolution was not marked by a single catastrophic moment, but rather by an accumulation of small, seemingly unrelated occurrences that together formed a tipping point. In remote regions and forgotten cities alike, relics of a bygone era began to reveal hints of a past that was more volatile and unpredictable than many had dared to imagine. Underlying the transition was a pervasive sense of dislocation, born from the relentless march of progress and the erosion of established institutions. Over time, foundational belief systems gave way to a more fragmented reality, where the weight of ancient traditions clashed with the demands of modernity. Subtle ideological shifts, coupled with experimental technologies and obscure research into lost methodologies, created an environment primed for extraordinary phenomena. The foundations of order were slowly undermined by a quiet yet persistent unrest, a slow decay that was almost imperceptible until it reached a critical mass. In various regions, isolated scholars and independent observers documented a series of inexplicable occurrences. These accounts, though sporadic and often dismissed as mere folklore, gradually gained attention as their frequency increased. There was a growing awareness that the natural and the supernatural were becoming intertwined in unexpected ways. Environmental disturbances, anomalous energy patterns, and the sudden reappearance of relics once thought to be permanently dormant all contributed to an emerging narrative. These threads, when woven together, painted a picture of a world on the brink of rediscovering lost aspects of its identity, elements that had been intentionally obscured or inadvertently forgotten over the centuries. Economic fluctuations and power struggles further compounded the situation, as emerging factions and traditional power brokers alike found themselves grappling with forces that defied conventional explanation. In the shadows of bustling trade centers and war-torn frontier towns, subtle currents of dissent and rebellion fed into the broader atmosphere of uncertainty. The collapse of long-standing trade networks and the dissolution of age-old alliances left a vacuum that was quickly filled by speculative theories and half-remembered legends. These conditions nurtured an environment where the rational and the mystical began to converge, blurring the line between science and superstition. At the same time, natural phenomena played their own role in shaping the path toward this remarkable occurrence. Unusual celestial events, shifts in the magnetic fields, and irregularities in seasonal cycles provided a backdrop that seemed to defy the predictable rhythms of nature. For those who paid close attention, these signs were interpreted not as random events, but as part of a larger cosmic design that had been set in motion long ago. The interplay of atmospheric disturbances and subtle changes in the landscape contributed to an aura of unpredictability. This natural variability, coupled with human ambition and the relentless quest for knowledge, gradually undermined the assumptions of stability that had long prevailed. In the midst of this evolving panorama, quiet revolutions in thought and the dissemination of long-suppressed knowledge played an unexpectedly influential role. Secret gatherings, covert transmissions, and carefully preserved manuscripts began to circulate among a diverse array of communities. These sources, once confined to the recesses of private libraries and guarded vaults, started to inform a growing collective awareness. As obscure scientific treatises and ancient philosophical musings found new audiences, the groundwork was laid for a re-evaluation of the past and its hidden reservoirs of power. The convergence of these intellectual currents with practical efforts to rediscover lost techniques created fertile ground for the emergence of phenomena that defied conventional expectations. Thus, a subtle yet inexorable progression of events, spanning ideological shifts, environmental anomalies, and the quiet reclamation of suppressed histories, combined to catalyze a transformation that many had only begun to suspect. Without a single decisive catalyst, the interplay of these factors created a volatile atmosphere where the emergence of skeletal legacies became almost inevitable. The processes that led to this moment were multifaceted and complex, reflecting the intricate interplay between time, memory, and the restless energy of change. In this milieu, the traditional boundaries between the known and the mysterious began to erode, leaving behind a landscape where ancient whispers merged with the pulse of a rapidly evolving present. Every element, from the dissolution of old orders to the unexpected stirrings in the natural world, contributed to a gradual buildup that defied immediate explanation. The intricate dance of historical momentum, cultural shifts, and unanticipated natural phenomena coalesced into a prelude that was as subtle as it was profound. It was within this layered framework, a synthesis of time-worn traditions and emergent realities, that the conditions for the skeletal presence were ultimately forged. A series of distinct phases marked the unfolding of events tied to the skeletal presence. In the initial stage, subtle phenomena began to emerge in isolated regions. Localized disturbances in quiet communities signaled an unforeseen reawakening of forces that had long lain dormant. At first, these occurrences were seen as isolated incidents, rare flickers of inexplicable energy that disrupted the ordinary flow of life. Unusual environmental shifts, erratic weather patterns, and inexplicable physical anomalies were observed by those attuned to nature's rhythms. In these early moments, witnesses reported strange lights and echoes that defied conventional explanation, prompting both awe and apprehension. This embryonic phase laid the groundwork for a gradual transformation that would soon sweep across the wider landscape. As these early signs accumulated, the next stage witnessed a steady amplification of occurrences that drew greater attention from local communities and discreet observers. Patterns began to emerge from what was once seen as sporadic activity. Remote locations, previously untouched by modern interference, suddenly became sites of unusual activity. Regions that had long been forgotten as quiet backwaters now played host to inexplicable events that disrupted local customs and daily routines. Small groups of researchers and independent chroniclers started to piece together disparate clues, slowly realizing that these manifestations were not isolated curiosities, but part of a broader and more significant phenomenon. Their investigations revealed that these disturbances were not random anomalies, but the heralds of something deeply rooted in the past, an echo of events that had been buried under layers of time. The subsequent phase marked a period of intensification, where the once subtle signals evolved into more pronounced episodes. Evidence of the skeletal presence grew unmistakable, and communities that had experienced isolated events began reporting recurring incidents with increasing regularity. In this stage, the frequency of unusual manifestations surged, with affected areas witnessing not only a rise in number, but also in the scale of occurrences. Observers noted that disturbances became more synchronized across distant locales, hinting at an underlying force orchestrating these events. During this period, the focus shifted from local anomalies to a more comprehensive understanding that the emerging force was interconnected with historical currents. The development of new observational methods and techniques allowed a handful of dedicated investigators to begin mapping these events chronologically, piecing together the progression from faint beginnings to a formidable resurgence. In parallel with the intensification, an era of structured investigation took shape. Scholars and independent analysts, having recognized the significance of the earlier signs, initiated coordinated efforts to document and analyze the unfolding events. Through the systematic gathering of data and testimonies, they created a series of records that charted the evolution from scattered anomalies to a more organized display of phenomena. This period was characterized by a growing consensus that these events were not merely a return of something old, but a reactivation of forces that had been locked in a state of suspended animation. Researchers applied emerging technologies and innovative analytical frameworks to decode the signs, gradually revealing a complex timeline of manifestations that defied the limitations of conventional historical narratives. Following the surge in documented activity, the progression entered a transformative phase wherein the skeletal phenomenon began to influence broader regions. The visible impact of these forces was no longer confined to remote corners, but started to ripple through areas of established civilization. Cultural institutions, academic circles, and even administrative bodies began to acknowledge the unfolding events, though their interpretations varied widely. In some sectors, the phenomenon was seen as a catalyst for a resurgence of lost traditions and forgotten lore, while in others it was perceived as a disruptive element threatening the stability of long-held institutions. This divergence in perception further deepened the complexity of the situation, as attempts to categorize or contain the phenomenon met with limited success. The observable transformation during this stage underscored the far-reaching implications of the skeletal presence, hinting at a reordering of priorities for societies grappling with a reality that no longer adhered to familiar patterns. In the final stage of this developmental arc, the dynamic interplay between cause and effect reached a state of heightened volatility. By this point, the phenomenon had established a distinct imprint on the landscape of events, its influence pervading both the natural world and the constructed order of human society. Intermittent but increasingly forceful manifestations catalyzed a feedback loop in which each new occurrence further destabilized established norms and encouraged additional unexpected events. Although efforts to document every nuance of this stage encountered inherent limitations, the cumulative evidence suggested that the skeletal presence was entering a phase of self-reinforcement. The events in this later period demonstrated a clear acceleration in both intensity and complexity, setting the stage for subsequent developments that would redefine the relationship between the past and the emergent reality. Throughout these evolving stages, each phase contributed its own distinct character to the overall progression. The initial subtle awakenings, the growing accumulation of inexplicable occurrences, the intensification marked by synchronized events, the methodical phase of investigation, and finally, the transformative impact on established structures. All these segments collectively trace a path from quiet beginnings to a state of dynamic upheaval. This sequence of developments, unfolding over an extended period, forms a layered narrative of gradual emergence, persistent transformation, and ultimate escalation, a narrative that continues to provoke inquiry and challenge conventional wisdom about the nature and legacy of the skeletal phenomenon. In the midst of escalating uncertainty and mounting tensions, a singular moment emerged that irrevocably altered the trajectory of the unfolding mystery. This moment was not marked by an explosion or a dramatic clash of arms, but by a quiet yet resolute decision that brought together disparate threads of an increasingly complex narrative. At a time when the various influences surrounding the skeletal phenomenon seemed destined to continue on separate, inconclusive paths, a decisive intervention crystallized into an event that would reframe the entire saga. At an isolated gathering held in a secluded, time-worn sanctuary, long hidden from the clamor of daily life, an influential council assembled. This meeting, drawing representatives from multiple realms of thought and purpose, was convened under the shared understanding that the current course of events had reached a critical juncture. The air was thick with anticipation and the gravity of accumulated uncertainties as participants recognized that the delicate balance of forces was nearing a point of no return. The decision made in that chamber would serve as a pivot, redirecting the ensuing flow of events in ways that none could have fully anticipated. Within the confines of this meeting, an unprecedented consensus was forged among those who had long observed the signs and portents with growing concern. Without recourse to overt declarations or public announcements, the Council arrived at a resolution that signified both an acknowledgement of the deep-seated changes taking place and a willingness to engage directly with the phenomenon that had long lurked on the fringes of collective understanding. This resolution was not a call to arms nor a retreat into cautious isolation. Instead, it was a bold commitment to confront the realities that had slowly emerged from the shadows of antiquity. The turning point was defined by a multifaceted decision that encapsulated several vital elements. Firstly, it entailed a recognition that the forces behind the skeletal manifestations had transcended previous categorizations and could no longer be sidelined as mere vestiges of a distant past. In making this recognition, the assembled figures broke from long-standing traditions that had, until now, confined such forces to the realm of folklore and myth. This act of recognition was, in itself, transformative, setting in motion a series of responses that would ripple through various layers of society. The acknowledgement of the phenomenon's reality signaled a departure from the cautious neutrality that had characterized earlier approaches, opening the door to a more proactive engagement with what lay ahead. Secondly, the Council resolved to adopt a coordinated strategy that would harness the collective capabilities of those present. By aligning efforts, the decision was made to integrate specialized knowledge, technical expertise, and historical insight into a coherent plan aimed at understanding and influencing the skeletal presence. Rather than attempting to suppress or entirely control the phenomenon, the chosen course sought to establish a framework within which its effects could be observed, measured, and, if possible, guided toward outcomes that would serve a greater good. This collaborative approach was unprecedented, drawing together voices from a variety of disciplines and traditions that had previously operated in isolation from one another. Thirdly, the decision carried an implicit acknowledgement that the unfolding events demanded not only tactical adjustments, but also a profound shift in perspective. The Council recognized that the skeletal manifestations were not simply a remnant of ancient power, but a dynamic agent capable of reshaping the boundaries between what was known and what was hidden. In accepting this new paradigm, those present signaled their readiness to re-examine long-held assumptions and to embrace a mode of inquiry that transcended conventional limits. This shift in perspective was central to the decision's transformative impact, as it allowed for a more holistic and adaptive response to the evolving situation. As the meeting drew to a close, the resolution was conveyed not in the form of a singular declarative statement, but as a series of commitments to ongoing investigation and measured intervention. The Council's decision, while decisive, was deliberately structured to be flexible, a recognition that the full implications of the skeletal phenomenon could not be predetermined. The commitment was thus framed as a continuous process of assessment and adjustment, ensuring that subsequent actions could adapt to emerging insights and unforeseen challenges. This pivotal moment, marked by its clarity and resolve, became the linchpin upon which subsequent events would turn. Its significance was not confined to the immediate aftermath of the meeting. Rather, it resonated deeply with all who had been observing the gradual accumulation of subtle signs and portents. By taking a stand at this critical juncture, the decision reoriented the course of history, setting in motion a chain reaction that would redefine relationships, priorities, and the very understanding of what the skeletal presence represented. In its wake, the decision ushered in a period marked by renewed inquiry, collaboration, and an unyielding determination to engage with the phenomenon on its own terms. The key turning event thus stands as a testament to the power of a well-considered choice at a moment when the forces of history demanded acknowledgement and action, a choice that would shape the ensuing narrative in ways both profound and far-reaching. The arrival of the skeletal forces sent ripples through the fabric of existence, triggering changes that were felt almost instantaneously across a multitude of realms. This presence, emerging from the depths of forgotten lore, disrupted the conventional order in ways that defied simple categorization. In its wake, communities and power structures experienced a sudden reordering that left many grappling with a transformed reality. The phenomenon imposed a shift in the natural cadence of life, as if a dormant chord in the symphony of existence had been struck, unleashing a resonance that penetrated every layer of the cosmos. In urban centers and isolated settlements alike, the immediate effect was a pervasive sense of instability. Traditional hierarchies and established institutions, long regarded as pillars of societal structure, found themselves questioning their foundational principles. Leaders and local councils, who once took comfort in predictable cycles of governance and ritual, now faced the challenge of recalibrating their approaches to an emerging and inscrutable force. The arrival of these forces led to a re-evaluation of priorities. Resources and energies that were previously dedicated to maintaining order were now diverted towards understanding and adapting to the new dynamics. Communities that had once thrived on the certainty of familiar patterns suddenly encountered an urgency to reinterpret their place in a shifting landscape. Beyond the immediate political and social spheres, the presence of the skeletal manifestations influenced cultural expression in profound ways. Art, literature, and folklore absorbed the shock of this revelation, with creative minds seeking to capture the essence of a universe in upheaval. Works of art began to reflect themes of rebirth and decay, oscillating between hope and despair as they mirrored the rapidly evolving environment. These creative outpourings were not mere echoes of past narratives. They represented an authentic, raw engagement with the reality of change. As new symbols emerged in public consciousness, they offered a means to communicate the altered state of existence, a language of transformation that transcended the boundaries of conventional discourse. Scientific communities were not spared from the immediate impact. Researchers, accustomed to delineating the laws of nature with precision, found themselves confronting phenomena that blurred the line between empirical data and metaphysical conjecture. Laboratories and research institutions became hotbeds of experimental inquiry, as scientists sought to quantify the unquantifiable and chart the unknown variables introduced by the skeletal emergence. Instruments calibrated to measure predictable forces registered anomalies that defied prior models, compelling a rapid revision of theoretical frameworks. Collaborative efforts sprang up across disciplines as experts in physics, biology, and metaphysics worked side by side to decipher the immediate implications of this newfound presence. On a broader cosmic scale, the influence of the skeletal forces extended to the natural world in surprising ways. Ecological systems, long maintained by a delicate equilibrium, experienced disruptions that reverberated through entire ecosystems. In regions where nature had once operated in a state of relative harmony, abrupt alterations in energy flows triggered unpredictable shifts. Plant life and animal behavior exhibited signs of stress, as if reacting to an underlying current of change that permeated the environment. The natural world, once seen as a static backdrop to human endeavors, was now an active participant in the unfolding drama. Ecosystems adapted, sometimes rapidly, to the novel conditions imposed by the skeletal influence, leading to emergent behaviors that challenged previous understandings of biological resilience and adaptation. This immediate transformation was also felt in the metaphysical and spiritual dimensions of society. Faith and belief systems, which had long provided comfort in times of uncertainty, were suddenly confronted with a force that defied traditional dogmas. Religious institutions and spiritual leaders were forced to reassess their teachings, integrating accounts of these events into their interpretive frameworks. For many, the presence of these forces catalyzed a spiritual awakening, a call to embrace the unknown rather than resist it. Pilgrimages to sites of anomalous activity increased as individuals sought personal insight into the nature of existence and the larger forces at play. In this way, the skeletal phenomenon not only disrupted established orders, but also prompted an introspection of values and beliefs, challenging adherents to find meaning in the midst of a rapidly shifting paradigm. The immediate impact on communication and technology was equally notable. Networks that once facilitated predictable exchange of information became conduits for a flood of new data, much of which was unclassifiable by conventional standards. Digital archives and communication systems began to reflect the chaos of the moment, as previously hidden messages and symbols surfaced with increasing frequency. This digital upheaval forced a re-evaluation of the relationship between human knowledge and the unseen forces influencing the world. In many ways, the arrival of the skeletal manifestations catalyzed an era of accelerated innovation, as technologists and data analysts scrambled to decode and integrate these emergent patterns into a cohesive understanding of the universe. In sum, the immediate impact of the skeletal presence was a multifaceted disruption that resonated across political, cultural, scientific, ecological, and spiritual spheres. Each sector experienced a rapid and profound transformation, as the established norms were challenged and replaced by a reality infused with uncertainty and possibility. The effects were not confined to isolated regions. They cascaded outward, touching every corner of the cosmos with a force that demanded attention, adaptation, and ultimately a redefinition of what it meant to exist in a universe forever altered by the presence of these ancient forces. Among the many topics that ignite passionate discussion among enthusiasts, one of the most intriguing centers on the singular qualities that set the skeletal manifestations apart from every other phenomenon in this universe. Central to these discussions is the notion that the skeletal forces operate on an entirely different wavelength, both figuratively and literally. Fans speculate that these forces might interact with the underlying fabric of existence in ways that defy conventional science, a perspective that has spawned countless theories regarding vibrational frequencies and energy harmonics. In community forums and detailed analysis videos, adherents argue that subtle shifts in ambient energy levels could be both a signature and a source of the skeletal presence's power. Some propose that their very structure might be composed of energy patterns that resonate with cosmic phenomena previously considered outside the realm of natural laws. Another captivating aspect frequently debated is the possibility of a hidden language or code intrinsic to these forces. Within the fan community, many enthusiasts draw parallels between the skeletal apparitions and ancient inscriptions, asserting that the patterns they display may not be random at all, but rather a deliberate mode of communication. Detailed artistic renditions and theoretical treatises explore the idea that these skeletal forms could transmit messages through shifting geometries or light patterns that mimic symbols found in lost civilizations. This notion has spurred a wave of interdisciplinary studies, where experts in semiotics, history, and metaphysics join forces with digital artists and coders to decipher what might be an entirely new lexicon of existence. Equally fascinating is the discussion surrounding the tactile qualities attributed to the skeletal forces. Unlike other spectral phenomena, accounts suggest that these manifestations possess an almost palpable presence, something that can be felt if not seen in its entirety. Devotees recount experiences where a chilling sensation or a subtle vibration accompanied encounters with the skeletal forms, suggesting that these entities might bridge the gap between the immaterial and the corporeal. This peculiarity has led to spirited debates on whether the phenomenon could be harnessed, at least partially, to influence material reality. Some argue that the sensations reported are the result of interactions with quantum fields, while others lean towards more metaphysical explanations, positing that the forces might be a remnant of a primordial state of existence. A recurring theme in fan theories involves the interplay of the skeletal forces with time itself. Many contributors to the discussion hypothesize that the emergence of these entities is not merely a reaction to historical forces, but also an active participant in the shaping of temporal progression. Some enthusiasts maintain that these forces could be both a cause and an effect in the shifting timeline, a sort of temporal anomaly that exists outside the conventional bounds of cause and effect. This idea is bolstered by accounts of seemingly inexplicable events, where the progression of time appears to warp or hesitate in areas influenced by the skeletal presence. Speculation in online communities often centers around the possibility that these manifestations might be tied to cycles of cosmic rebirth, representing a natural mechanism through which the universe recalibrates itself periodically. Adding another layer to the allure of these phenomena is the striking visual and auditory impact they appear to impose upon their surroundings. Observers describe the environment around the skeletal forces as undergoing a transformation, where common sounds take on an echo-like quality and colors become unusually vivid or even surreal. This sensory distortion is a favorite topic among fans, who delve into discussions about the potential psychological and neurological implications of prolonged exposure to such forces. Some propose that these experiences could unlock latent human abilities, perhaps even leading to a form of collective enlightenment or a redefinition of perception itself. The hypothesis suggests that if these skeletal manifestations are indeed interacting with human consciousness at a fundamental level, the phenomenon might serve as a catalyst for an evolutionary leap in human awareness. Moreover, there is a vibrant debate about the possible connection between these forces and a broader network of ancient relics scattered throughout the universe. Many in the community insist that the skeletal phenomena are not isolated incidents, but part of an extensive interwoven narrative of relics and ancient technologies that have been waiting to be rediscovered. This perspective has spurred extensive cataloging projects and virtual reconstructions, where fans meticulously document artifacts and symbols that seem to echo the aesthetic and energy signatures of the skeletal forms. In online symposiums and collaborative research projects, enthusiasts exchange theories about the potential origins of these relics, pondering whether they might be remnants of an ancient civilization that once mastered the secrets of energy and matter at an unparalleled scale. In summary, the unique aspects of the skeletal manifestations captivate fans because they challenge the boundaries between science, art, and mysticism. The discussion encompasses everything from energy resonance and hidden codes to the manipulation of time and the evolution of human perception. This rich tapestry of ideas continues to evolve, fueled by creative interpretations and rigorous debates, ensuring that the skeletal forces remain not only a subject of profound mystery, but also a fertile ground for future discoveries and imaginative explorations. Few individuals stand apart as definitive beacons in the complex narrative of the skeletal phenomenon, each leaving a distinct mark on its unfolding legacy. Their names are spoken with a blend of reverence and caution, and their personal journeys weave together threads of ambition, sacrifice, and inner turmoil. These personalities have become both symbols of hope and cautionary tales, with their strengths and vulnerabilities often defining the paths they walk in a universe transformed by forces beyond ordinary comprehension. One such individual is Alaric Stormborn, a figure known for his relentless pursuit of hidden truths. Alaric possesses a mind that blends analytical rigor with a deep intuition for the mysterious, allowing him to uncover layers of meaning where others see only chaos. His intellectual curiosity is matched by a tenacious spirit that refuses to back down from the unknown. Alaric's primary goal is to decode the subtle messages embedded within the skeletal phenomena, believing that understanding its origin and purpose will unlock the keys to restoring balance. His greatest strength lies in his capacity for synthesizing disparate data, points into a coherent vision, a quality that has earned him both admiration and skepticism among his peers. However, his single-minded determination occasionally borders on obsession, rendering him vulnerable to isolation and the risk of missing broader perspectives. In moments of quiet introspection, Alaric wrestles with the possibility that his drive for discovery might also lead him into moral ambiguities or personal ruin. Another standout personality is Marisol Everdusk, whose calm demeanor and empathetic approach have made her a trusted mediator in turbulent times. Marisol's journey is defined by her commitment to bridging the gap between the mysterious skeletal influences and the human experience. She is celebrated for her ability to listen deeply, absorb the emotional undercurrents of those around her, and forge connections that transcend conventional barriers. Her objective is not solely to understand the forces at play, but to help communities navigate the emotional and spiritual upheavals that accompany them. Marisol's greatest strength is her innate compassion, which enables her to soothe anxieties and inspire collective resilience. Yet, this sensitivity also proves to be a double-edged sword. Her empathy sometimes leaves her emotionally depleted, and the constant exposure to the intensity of human suffering and cosmic enigma can erode her inner balance. Despite these challenges, Marisol continues to act as a guiding light for many, embodying the belief that understanding the unknown can lead to profound healing. A figure whose presence has stirred considerable debate is Darius Blackthorn, a strategist and reluctant visionary whose methods are as unorthodox as the phenomena he studies. Darius is driven by a desire to harness the transformative potential of the skeletal manifestations to recalibrate power structures and usher in a new era of order. His strategic acumen is underscored by a capacity to foresee outcomes that elude more conventional thinkers, allowing him to devise plans that weave together both calculated risk and opportunistic timing. While his vision is ambitious and far-reaching, it is tempered by a pragmatic awareness of the inherent chaos that surrounds the phenomenon. Darius's strengths include a clear-eyed assessment of risks and a deep-seated determination to convert uncertainty into opportunity. However, his assertiveness sometimes veers into ruthlessness, and his readiness to make sacrifices for a greater perceived good has sparked controversies about the moral cost of his ambitions. His internal conflict is palpable as he struggles between the allure of transformative power and the ethical dilemmas that come with reshaping a world in flux. Equally significant is the persona of Lyanna Clearwater, an archivist and keeper of forgotten lore whose life's work is dedicated to preserving the fragile memories of civilizations that once grappled with forces similar to the skeletal presence. Lyanna is marked by a quiet resilience and an almost sacred commitment to the truth, no matter how inconvenient or painful. With an uncanny ability to recall and interpret details from dusty tomes, oral traditions, and relics, she serves as a living repository of knowledge that many believe holds the key to understanding the cyclical nature of these phenomena. Her strength lies in her patient determination and the clarity of her historical insight, qualities that allow her to see beyond the immediate chaos and offer perspectives that are grounded in long-term continuity. Yet, Lyanna is not impervious to doubt. The burden of preserving such vast and complex histories often leaves her wrestling with a profound sense of melancholy and responsibility. The challenge of reconciling the ideal of pure knowledge with the reality of an ever-changing present remains an enduring internal struggle for her. Collectively, these personalities illustrate the multifaceted human responses to a force that defies easy categorization. Their ambitions range from the intellectual to the humanitarian, from the strategic to the preservative, each influenced by personal histories and distinct visions of what the future might hold. They exemplify the paradoxical nature of those who engage with the skeletal phenomenon, individuals who possess the courage to confront the unknown, yet remain deeply aware of the inherent perils in altering the fabric of existence. In the grand tapestry of events, their actions are not isolated. Rather, they resonate with the larger themes of discovery, adaptation, and the eternal quest for balance between progress and preservation. In the ongoing debates within communities of enthusiasts, these figures are often celebrated not merely for their achievements, but also for the vulnerabilities that render them deeply human. Their strengths provide hope and direction, while their weaknesses serve as poignant reminders of the cost of engaging with forces that stretch the boundaries of conventional reality. Whether it is through the relentless pursuit of truth, the empathetic bridging of fractured worlds, the calculated risk-taking in reshaping power dynamics, or the dedicated preservation of ancient wisdom. These individuals embody the spirit of inquiry and resilience that continues to inspire and challenge those who study the enigmatic skeletal influences. Within the vast discourse surrounding the skeletal phenomenon, numerous unresolved questions and speculative theories continue to fuel intense debates among scholars, enthusiasts, and casual observers alike. One of the most persistent mysteries revolves around the origin of these skeletal manifestations. While some conjecture that they are echoes of a forgotten civilization or a primordial energy source, others propose that they are byproducts of cosmic events that predate recorded history. The debate is further complicated by scant evidence, leaving room for imaginative extrapolation and fueling divergent theories about the true nature of their genesis. Another intriguing question centers on the potential purpose these entities might serve within the broader cosmic ecosystem. Do they function as natural regulators, agents of cosmic equilibrium, or perhaps as remnants of a once thriving network of energy that served as the underpinning of an ancient order? Proponents of the regulator hypothesis argue that their presence is essential for maintaining a delicate balance between competing forces, suggesting that they might actively mediate interactions that would otherwise spiral into chaos. On the other hand, some theorists assert that these skeletal forces are vestiges of a bygone era, residual imprints that persist as silent witnesses to past epochs, holding no deliberate function but merely serving as markers of historical transitions. The manner in which these forces interact with other dimensions of existence presents another layer of unresolved inquiry. Observers have noted that areas influenced by the skeletal presence often exhibit phenomena that blur the boundaries between physical reality and the intangible. Speculation abounds as to whether these manifestations might be tapping into energy reservoirs or alternative planes that remain hidden from conventional scientific instruments. Some posit that their existence could provide clues to a more complex architecture of reality, one where the material and the metaphysical are interwoven in ways that defy standard models of physics. The possibility that these forces might be conduits for interdimensional communication or even gateways to realms beyond our own remains a tantalizing yet unproven aspect of the theory. Another subject of vigorous debate is the nature of the interaction between the skeletal influences and human consciousness. A number of theories suggest that these entities might have a subtle, perhaps even transformative impact on the way individuals perceive reality. Certain accounts propose that prolonged exposure to their presence induces cognitive shifts or heightened awareness, sparking discussions about potential long-term effects on mental faculties and societal evolution. Some enthusiasts argue that the phenomenon might act as a catalyst for unlocking latent human potential, while detractors warn that such interactions could lead to disorientation or an erosion of established perceptions. The lack of definitive evidence in this area has left many questions unanswered, prompting calls for further empirical study and a more nuanced exploration of mind-matter interplay. In addition to these scientific and metaphysical puzzles, the symbolism and cultural interpretations attached to the skeletal forces continue to be a fertile ground for debate. Various groups interpret the manifestations through the lens of their own ideological and philosophical frameworks. Some view the skeletal echoes as harbingers of renewal, positing that their emergence signals a necessary purge of outdated systems and the ushering in of a new era. Others see them as ominous warnings, portents of disruption and decay that challenge long-held beliefs about the sanctity of the known order. These contrasting interpretations have led to heated discussions in community circles, where each perspective is passionately defended using a mix of historical analogy, literary symbolism, and speculative reasoning. Moreover, the possibility that the skeletal forces might be connected to a broader network of unexplained phenomena remains a contentious issue. Observers have noted correlations between the emergence of these entities and other inexplicable events across disparate regions. Some theorists suggest that these coincidences are not random, but instead point to a hidden underlying framework that binds seemingly unrelated occurrences into a cohesive tapestry of mystery. This concept raises further questions about the extent to which these forces might be influencing or even orchestrating a series of events that have historically been considered anomalies. Despite numerous attempts to trace definitive links, the lack of conclusive data has only deepened the intrigue and spurred additional hypotheses that range from the scientifically plausible to the wildly imaginative. Finally, the question of whether the skeletal manifestations are a transient anomaly or a permanent fixture in the cosmos continues to challenge experts. Their persistence over time and the gradual evolution of their observable traits have led some to speculate that they are in the midst of a transformative process, one that could eventually lead to a stable integration with the known order, or alternatively, precipitate a radical restructuring of established paradigms. The prospect of such an eventuality has profound implications for future research and for the way societies might adapt to an altered reality, yet definitive answers remain elusive. In sum, the unresolved questions and theories surrounding the skeletal phenomenon encapsulate some of the most provocative and divisive issues in current speculative discourse. Whether concerning their origin, purpose, interaction with dimensions and human consciousness, cultural symbolism, potential connections to other anomalies, or their ultimate fate, each aspect invites further inquiry and debate. The absence of clear-cut answers only serves to intensify interest and inspire a continual re-examination of assumptions, ensuring that the dialogue around these mysterious forces remains as dynamic and multifaceted as the phenomenon itself. In the distant future, the legacy of these skeletal forces is expected to cast a long shadow over the cosmos, influencing not only immediate circumstances, but also the very framework through which civilizations understand existence. As time stretches onward, the presence of these entities is projected to alter the structure of society, scientific inquiry, and even the metaphysical boundaries that define reality. Some envision that this phenomenon could herald a new era of enlightenment and cohesion, while others warn of a gradual disintegration of established orders, leading to unforeseen challenges and potential chaos. One likely long-term consequence is the transformation of scientific paradigms. Traditional models that have governed the understanding of physical laws may eventually be reshaped by persistent encounters with these skeletal forces. Researchers are already anticipating that future breakthroughs will necessitate the integration of disciplines that were once considered distinct, such as quantum mechanics and metaphysical studies. In the coming years, a more holistic approach to understanding reality could emerge, one that reconciles empirical evidence with intuitions about hidden dimensions and non-material influences. Such a shift might encourage the development of innovative technologies and methodologies, potentially unlocking previously inaccessible realms of knowledge. However, the transition could also disrupt current scientific consensus, leading to periods of intellectual upheaval and uncertainty as old certainties give way to a redefined understanding of the universe. The cultural impact of these phenomena is also expected to evolve in profound ways. As the skeletal forces persist and become more deeply embedded in collective memory, artistic and literary traditions will likely continue to draw inspiration from their mysterious influence. Over time, new mythologies may arise that reinterpret the encounter with these forces as both a moment of reckoning and a source of renewal. Communities might find solace or inspiration in the symbolism of these spectral remnants, integrating them into rituals, ceremonies, and cultural narratives that emphasize transformation and the cyclical nature of existence. Conversely, for some, the constant reminder of an unpredictable and possibly intrusive presence may foster feelings of alienation and dread, fueling movements that resist change and cling to the familiarity of established beliefs. Political and social structures could also face long-term ramifications. As the forces leave their mark on the physical and metaphysical landscapes, the interplay between tradition and innovation may provoke a fundamental reassessment of governance and authority. In some regions, the emergence of new power dynamics might result in the rise of reformist movements that advocate for an adaptive, fluid approach to leadership. These movements may be characterized by a willingness to experiment with unconventional strategies, forging alliances that cross cultural and ideological divides. On the other hand, conservative elements might interpret the phenomenon as a sign of decay in the old order, prompting a retreat into isolationism or even authoritarianism as communities seek to reclaim a sense of control in a rapidly changing environment. The very fabric of the universe could be subtly reconfigured by the ongoing influence of these forces. There is a possibility that the persistent interaction between the skeletal entities and natural systems may trigger a gradual realignment of energy flows throughout cosmic structures. This could lead to new patterns of matter organization, potentially influencing the evolution of galaxies, star systems, and even planetary ecosystems. In this scenario, the long-term outcome may manifest as a reordering of cosmic hierarchies, a phenomenon that might ultimately be perceived as a form of natural progression toward a more integrated and dynamic state of being. Yet, such a transformation carries inherent risks. As established balances shift, the potential for unpredictable consequences increases, challenging the resilience of both natural and human-made systems. Spiritual and philosophical interpretations are likely to become even more significant as societies grapple with the enduring presence of these forces. Over time, a range of belief systems may emerge that attempt to incorporate the skeletal phenomenon into broader narratives about destiny, purpose, and the nature of existence. Some of these interpretations may emphasize the role of the forces as catalysts for growth, urging humanity to embrace change and the unknown. Others might see them as ominous signs of a universe in turmoil, portending an era of existential crisis and moral ambiguity. As these divergent views take root, the dialogue surrounding the phenomenon could lead to both unification and division within communities, as different groups attempt to chart a course through a future defined by radical uncertainty. Ultimately, the long-term consequences of the skeletal forces are likely to be multifaceted and far-reaching. Their impact may be viewed as positive by those who believe that exposure to the unknown can drive progress, stimulate intellectual breakthroughs, and inspire new forms of artistic expression. Conversely, there is a considerable risk that their continued influence could exacerbate existing tensions, undermine traditional frameworks of understanding, and precipitate a period of instability that challenges the very essence of societal order. Whether the eventual outcome is one of enlightenment and renewal or of disintegration and conflict remains an open question, one that will undoubtedly inspire further debate, exploration, and ultimately transformation across all layers of existence.